Welcome to Crushed Husband. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. The beer was still cold when it hit my chest. Full can. Right off Devin's hand like he was pitching for the damn Yankees. It soaked through my shirt in seconds, straight down the front, turning the white cotton gray and sticking it to my skin. Conversations around the picnic table stumbled to a stop, like someone yanked the O chord on the 4th of July playlist. All eyes were on me. "Ah, man, Jay, buddy, my bad." Devin's voice was loud, too loud. Fake concern plastered on his face like he was auditioning for a soap opera. "Didn't even see your arm there, bro. I get real animated when I talk. You know how it is?" He was laughing, not fully, just under his breath, enough that I could hear it. "My name's Jay. I'm 38 years old. I live just outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. And I've been dreading this lake weekend since the Evite hit my inbox last month. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. Every year, my extended family throws this big 4th of July blowout at my cousin's lake house up on Norris Lake. Burgers, beers, fireworks, kids running around, real postcard stuff. Used to be my favorite weekend of the year. Now, I only come out of guilt. My parents still show up, and they always ask if I'll be there. I say yes, and then regret it the minute I park. This time was worse, way worse, because Hannah was here, my ex-wife, and not just here, holding court on the deck in some tight little red dress and big movie star sunglasses, like she was too good to be near the potato salad. And right beside her, like some prize bull at a cattle auction, was Devin, her new fiancé. Real estate bro, big watch, fake teeth, more gel in his hair than the entire graduating class of 2003. He was telling some over-the-top story to my uncles and cousins about closing on a lifestyle development in Nashville. Gated community, private lake, wine cellar in every unit. Everyone laughed like they knew what any of that meant. Then he looked at me. "Jay here's the real hero, though," he said, grinning like he meant it. "Working with his hands, diesel mechanic, right? Keeping the world turning one busted truck at a time. That's when I felt it, that burn in the back of my neck. The kind you only feel when you're being talked down to, but no one else seems to notice." And right after he finished another one of his animated hand gestures, bam, beer, chest, silence. As I stood there dripping, Hannah tilted her sunglasses down and raised one eyebrow. "Well," she said, smiling just enough to cut, "you're used to being covered in grease and beer, right?" A few people gave those weird, nervous laughs, the ones people do when they don't know which side they're supposed to be on. That was it. I didn't say anything. Just grabbed a handful of napkins from the folding table, wiped the worst of the beer off, and walked toward my truck. I didn't leave, not yet. But in that moment, I knew. I was done being the punchline. I didn't even change shirts. Just sat in the truck, windows down, stinking of cheap beer and sweat, and stared out at the lake. Thing is, it wasn't always like this. Hannah and I used to talk about building something real, not just a marriage, but a life that felt ours from the ground up. She was working front desk at a dentist's office back then, and I was hustling side jobs out of my garage while holding down full-time at the diesel shop. Every Friday night, we'd sit out on the back steps with a couple of cold ones and sketch out ideas on napkins, logo designs, paint schemes, even a dumb name for the business. Iron Fox Customs. It was going to be our thing. Custom bikes, one-off builds, all American steel. And for a minute, it started to work. We got a lucky break when a buddy of mine from high school referred a guy who collected old Harleys. He dropped a pile of money for 2 restorations. Then his brother came through, wanted a chopper done. I quit the diesel shop. We signed a lease on a real space over in Oak Ridge, put up the sign. The dream was breathing. But it didn't last. The Harley guy got spooked when his business took a dive, pulled out of 2 builds mid-process. Suddenly, I was out close to $8,000 in parts I couldn't return. The next guy's check bounced. Then the landlord raised the rent out of nowhere, said he had a new buyer looking to redevelop the lot. I tried everything, called in favors, offered discounts, worked overnight to make deadlines. Nothing stuck. I fell behind on the rent. The power got shut off once, and I started dipping into the house account. The money we saved for a new roof, gone. Credit cards maxed. No health insurance. I knew we were sinking, but I thought she'd fight with me. She didn't. One Thursday morning, I came home from the garage, and the house was quiet. Kitchen table was clean. Her rings were sitting on top of a note. "I'm sorry, Jay. I can't do this anymore." That was it. No fight, no screaming, no tears. She was gone. Within the week, she'd moved in with a friend in Nashville. 3 months later, she posted a picture on Facebook with Devin. 6 months after that, they were engaged, smiling in some winery like they'd just discovered happiness for the first time. And me? I was still in that damn garage, selling off tools one by one, just to keep the lights on. The worst part wasn't even her leaving. It was watching my own family shift around it, like they just accepted the new storyline without asking a damn thing. Aunt Carol stopped inviting me to Sunday dinners. My cousins quit calling. Everyone got real quiet about Hannah, like she just floated off into another chapter, and I was the broken one they didn't want to be near. "She's just doing what's best for her," my mom said one day. Yeah, I noticed. And Devin, he came out of nowhere with that square jaw and shiny shoes, flashing money like it was Monopoly cash. Said he worked for a flipping group, buying distressed properties and turning them into luxury developments. The kind of guy who always looked like he was late for a photo shoot. People ate it up. He'd show up to family functions with a new watch every time. Talked about tax shelters and passive income like anyone gave a damn. I used to stand there, just watching him work the room. Everything about him felt rehearsed, too smooth, too clean. At first I figured it was just jealousy talking. I mean, of course I was bitter. He was sleeping next to the woman I used to love. But the more I listened, the more it felt hollow. Like he was always selling something. Problem is, no one else seemed to notice. Or they didn't care. Maybe they just liked the way he made them feel important. Rich by association. And me? I was just the guy who couldn't keep his dream alive. That's how I got here. Sitting in a truck that smells like lake water and Coors Light. Watching fireworks spark over a party I don't belong in anymore. But I swear to God, something in me shifted today. I'm done letting people write me off like I'm the failure they all whisper about behind paper plates and potato salad. And Devin? He might be shiny on the outside, but I've worked on enough busted engines to know when something's rattling underneath. A week later, I showed up to my cousin Becca's birthday brunch, hoping to keep my head down, eat a biscuit, and leave before anyone brought up career paths or wedding venues. But the second I walked into her backyard, I saw the damn Audi. Devin was already there, posted up at the picnic table like he owned the place, aviators on, mimosa in hand. His voice was loud enough to echo off the siding of the garage. "City council's dragging their feet, but I pushed it through," he was saying. 300 acres outside Murfreesboro, zoned at mixed use with a residential overlay. Took some finesse, but I made it happen. He raised his glass like he was toasting himself. Everyone at the table laughed, especially Uncle Rick, who clearly had no clue what any of that meant. I stayed near the drinks table, trying to act invisible, but it didn't last. "Well, if it isn't the man of the hour," Devin called out. "Jay, didn't know you'd be here." "Same," I said, grabbing a can of Dr. Pepper. Real surprise. He smiled like I'd just complimented his haircut. "Always good to see someone who still believes in good old-fashioned grit," he said, standing up to make sure everyone could hear. "We've got enough of us finance types. Takes guys like Jay to keep the wheels turning. Literally, right?" My cousin Matt gave a weak chuckle. Devin clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You know, I've always respected the blue-collar world. Real work, grease on your hands, hard-earned dollars." There it was again, him playing generous while acting like I was a mascot. I smiled back. "Yeah, it's a different kind of hustle. Of course, in my world, if something breaks, you fix it. No PowerPoints, no brunch meetings." A couple people at the table laughed. One of Becca's friends even snorted. Devin's jaw twitched just for a second. He gave a tight laugh and turned back to his seat. I walked over and grabbed a plate of eggs and sausage, pretending like it was nothing, but I saw the shift, the silence behind his eyes, like someone had just knocked over a domino he didn't expect to fall. He kept talking, but his rhythm was off now, a little too fast, a little too polished. I sat down on the far side of the table, listening while he tried to win the room back. "We're projecting double-digit growth on the rental units. Investors are already circling. The exit strategy's solid." Nobody asked what any of that meant. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, eyes narrowing just a hair before he slipped it back into his pocket. "Excuse me a sec," he said, standing up like he just remembered he had something urgent to do. He walked around the side of the house, smiling like a mannequin. I watched him go, chewing a mouthful of sausage, wondering what kind of text could knock the wind out of a guy like that. Whatever it was, he didn't want the audience to see him read it. I was halfway through my soda and already planning my exit, just needed an excuse that didn't sound bitter. That's when I saw Devin burst through the back door. He moved fast, like he was trying not to look like he was moving fast. Jacket folded over one arm, sunglasses back on, even though the sun was behind the trees now. I stepped off to the side near the driveway, just outside the cluster of lawn chairs and birthday balloons. He was pacing by his car, muttering into his phone, voice low and sharp. Then the door slammed again, and there she was. Hannah, wearing some cream-colored blouse and heels, like we weren't in a backyard full of ants and folding chairs. She walked up behind him, voice sharp and breathy. "What the hell was that?" He spun around. "Don't follow me out here." "What did the message say?" "Keep your voice down." I took a few slow steps toward my truck, real casual. They were across the gravel drive now, tucked just behind the row of parked cars. I kept my back turned, but I could hear every word clear as day. "I told you to stop pulling money out. You're making it worse," she hissed. "You weren't supposed to talk about that." "I didn't." "You told Becca's husband last week about the permit delays. Now someone's asking questions. That message wasn't random. It was anonymous." "So?" she shot back. "You said there was nothing to hide." Silence. Long enough that I could feel the space between them shift. Then he dropped it. "You opened your mouth. Now they're coming." She stepped back. "Excuse me?" He didn't answer. I turned slowly, keeping behind a truck, just in time to see her slap him, hard. Devin barely flinched, but his jaw locked tight, and he stared past her like she wasn't even standing there. "You know what? Figure it out yourself," she snapped. "I'm done playing dumb for you." She stormed off, heels clicking like nails on concrete. Devin stood frozen for another second, then climbed into the Audi, slammed the door, and just sat there, not moving. I got in my truck, heartbeat kicking up, mind racing. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but hell, I didn't feel bad about it either. Pulling money out now, anonymous messages. Permit delays? None of that sounded like success. That sounded like panic. And the way Devin looked, like the mask slipped for just a second, that was real. That was fear. I didn't leave right away, just sat behind the wheel, letting the pieces roll around in my head. Back when I had my shop, I dealt with more city inspectors and permit offices than I could count. The ones who smiled too much were always the ones hiding something. And Devin, he didn't look like a man in control. He looked like a man about to lose his grip. By the time I pulled into the diner the next day, my head was still spinning from what I'd heard behind that car. Ricky was already in the booth, sipping a Coke, tie undone, and safety vest draped over the seat. City Code Inspector for Knox County. We'd known each other since we were 16, used to race dirt bikes behind the old quarry. Solid guy, not a gossip, not dramatic. That's why I called him. "Damn, you look like hell," he said as I slid in across from him. "Didn't sleep much?" The waitress dropped menus. Ricky waved her off. "Just a burger, Diane. Extra pickles." Then he leaned in and kept his voice low. "All right, man. I can't tell you too much, but you said it was about that guy Hannah's with?" "Devin, real estate slickback with the fake tan." Ricky smirked. "Yeah, well, his name's been coming up a lot lately. Quiet stuff, nothing public yet. But there's buzz." I sat up straighter. "Buzz like what?" He dropped his voice even more. "Off the record, someone filed complaints, multiple. Zoning violations, occupancy limits, permits that don't match up with actual builds. And not the small stuff either. These are red flag level issues." I blinked. Shit. Couple of his development sites got hit with surprise inspections this week. State auditors showed up unannounced. One of the guys said it felt like someone inside flagged it, like they had real details. I let that sit for a second, staring down at the table. "Inside like one of his partners?" I asked. "Could be. Could also be someone close to him, somebody who's seen his emails, his files." Hannah? The name hit me before I even finished the thought. Ricky kept going. "City records are getting combed. His group's been real aggressive with how fast they're flipping land. Too fast, honestly. It doesn't make sense unless someone's cutting corners or greasing hands. I looked up at him. You think he's dirty? Ricky shrugged. I think he's either reckless or arrogant. Maybe both. But if the state's poking around this hard, something's coming. The waitress dropped our food, and neither of us touched it right away. I thought back to that fight in the driveway, Devin panicking, Hannah snapping back like she'd finally seen behind the curtain. Can I ask you something weird? I said. Always. What happens if someone close to him flipped? Like, what if they gave up documents or messages? Ricky raised his eyebrows. If they can prove it came from an insider, that changes everything. That's how fraud cases blow wide open. They just need one person to open the first door. He finally picked up his burger, took a bite. Why? You think she's involved? I didn't answer right away. I don't know, I said slowly. But something cracked between them. And it felt big. We ate in silence for a minute. Then Ricky leaned in again. If I were you, I'd keep my ears open. Whatever's coming, he's not ready for it. I nodded, but my mind was already racing ahead. If Hannah knew more than she let on, the question wasn't if she'd flip, it was why, and who she'd do it for. 2 days later, I walked into the neighborhood summer cookout and felt the tension before I even smelled the charcoal. This one was up at Mark and Lisa's place, out near the cul-de-sac. Fold-out tables loaded with hot dogs, baked beans, fruit salad, the usual. Kids sprinting through sprinklers, plastic chairs sinking into patchy lawn. It was supposed to be laid back, but the vibe was anything but. You could hear it in the whispers. No show again. Heard the deal fell through. Might be legal trouble. And I didn't have to ask who they were talking about. I spotted Hannah almost immediately. She was sitting by herself under the carport, just far enough from the crowd to look like she wasn't avoiding it. Hair tied back in some loose twist, sunglasses hiding her eyes, one hand gripping a bottle of water like it was the only thing holding her up. And Devin? Nowhere. I grabbed a plate and drifted toward the far end of the yard. Figured I'd keep my distance. She made her bed, let her sit in it. But after about an hour, I caught her staring at me. Not a glare, not a plea, just hollow. Like the light inside her had flickered out. She didn't wave, didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. Next thing I knew, I was standing 10 feet from her, holding a paper plate of ribs I wasn't hungry for. She saw me and pulled off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red, like she hadn't slept. Or maybe she'd cried herself dry. Can I show you something? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated, then nodded once. She pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, then handed it to me. The screen showed a blurry photo, looked like a surveillance shot. Devin, in a suit, handing a thick manila envelope to a man outside a county office building. The other guy wore a city badge. I kept staring, and she slid another image across. A folder full of texts, screenshots, dates, times, bribes. He'd been paying off inspectors, pushing permits through faster than legally allowed. Land use changes approved without public hearings. One project had even skipped environmental review altogether. Who sent you this? I asked. She shook her head. No name, no message, just dumped it all in my inbox, yesterday morning. Did you show him? She gave a bitter laugh. He denied it, said it was fake. Then he got defensive, accused me of leaking something. And did you? No. She looked down at her hands. But I should have. I saw enough. The calls, the meetings he wouldn't explain, the weird transfers. I didn't want to know. I handed the phone back. She was shaking now, barely holding herself together. I don't even know who I married, she said. He's not who I thought. Or maybe I never really looked. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? She'd jumped ship the second my garage went under, hitched herself to a rocket, and now it was burning up on re-entry. I feel like I'm watching my whole life fall apart, she whispered, and I don't know how to stop it. I took a breath. Maybe you're not supposed to. She blinked like that hit harder than she expected. Then she looked away, clutching her phone like it might disappear if she let go. People around us kept laughing, drinking, eating ribs like nothing was happening. But the storm had already landed, and she was sitting in the middle of it. And for the first time since that note on the kitchen table, I didn't feel small. I felt steady. I didn't hear from Hannah again after the cookout. Not a text, not a call. But I started hearing plenty about Devin. It was Ricky who hit me up first. Called during his lunch break 2 days later, his voice tight, half-whispered like he was ducking around a corner at City Hall. "Jay," he said, "I hope you're sitting down, man." "Why?" "Because it's a damn circus over here. Devin's permits are getting yanked left and right. They just pulled approvals on 2 of his biggest sites, one in South Knox, the other near the new bypass." I sat on the edge of my shop bench, wiping grease off my hands. That fast? State's involved now. It's not just zoning anymore. They're freezing access to municipal funds. Inspectors are going back through records from last year. Partner companies are ghosting him. Lawyers are showing up. It's bad. I let out a low breath. Is he done? Let's just say if I was him, I'd stop answering the door. By Friday, the rumors were flying everywhere. 2 contractors I knew said they'd been told to halt work on anything tied to Devin's name. A buddy at the supply yard said his account got flagged for suspicious payments. I even overheard someone at AutoZone say the FBI might be involved, but that part sounded like backyard gossip. The real stuff, the permits, the freezes, the money trails, that was already unraveling. And Hannah? She'd vanished. At least, that's what most people thought. But I knew better. I saw her car. A beat-up silver Camry, tucked behind the old laundromat off Kingston Pike, parked there every night for 4 nights straight. Same spot. First time I saw her, I didn't stop. Just drove by slow, headlights dimmed, and caught a glimpse of her in the front seat. Head down. Still. But on the 5th night, it was different. It was raining. Not hard, but steady enough to make everything feel cold and mean. I pulled around back after locking up the garage, and there she was again, hunched in the driver's seat, face in her hands. I parked 2 spots down, didn't get out at first, just sat there, engine running, watching the wipers drag across my windshield. She was crying, not loud or dramatic, just quiet and broken. I got out, walked to the passenger side of my truck, and pulled out an old moving blanket I kept for hauling parts, tossed in a brown bag with a sandwich and a bottle of water. Didn't knock, didn't speak. Just laid the blanket in the bag on her hood and walked back to my truck. As I pulled away, I didn't look in the mirror. I didn't need to. That was rock bottom, and she'd finally hit it. The woman who once judged me for not having vision was now living out of a sedan behind a damn laundromat. But I didn't feel smug. I felt tired. Because no matter how much I hated how things ended, no one deserved to go through that kind of fall alone. And deep down, I knew this wasn't the end of it. The way people were whispering about subpoenas, sealed documents, sealed lips, something bigger was building. Someone wasn't just going after Devin. They were lining up for the kill shot. I was under the hood of a '72 Nova when the journalist showed up. She pulled up in a faded Subaru, popped out with a tote bag and a voice recorder in one hand. Said her name was Taylor McBride, worked for a regional paper doing a story on corruption in real estate development. "I think your name came up for a reason," she said. I wiped my hands on a rag and leaned against the fender. "That's so?" "Yeah. One of your old customers, Matt Langston, owns the print company that did promo materials for a few of Devin's development sites. He had no idea who he was dealing with until the audit started." I remembered Matt. Good guy, paid on time, kept his car clean. Taylor held out a folder. "Your name came up because he said you warned him about Devin, called him a slick-talking liability. That true?" I shrugged. "Sounds like something I'd say." She smiled. "Would you talk to me? Off the record first. You can say no." I looked around the shop, smelled the motor oil, the metal, the sweat, felt the weight of everything I'd rebuilt with my bare hands. I nodded. "Yeah, sure, why not?" We sat in the corner office next to the mini fridge and a stack of old invoices. She hit record, and I told her everything. Not about the shady land deals, I didn't know enough to get into that, but I talked about the kind of people Devin represented, the ones who came into town, threw money around, made promises they never planned to keep, people who treated guys like me like background noise. "I was married to a woman who left the second the bank account dipped," I said. ran straight to a man with shinier shoes. I watched my family eat up everything he said, like I'd never existed. Taylor didn't interrupt, just listened. I kept it calm, steady, didn't try to be dramatic. I don't need sympathy, I said. Just don't want to see more people fooled by a flashy grin and a website full of drone footage. A week later, the article dropped. The fall of a flipping king behind the curtain of local real estate greed. The piece didn't hold back. Broke down shell companies, bribes, fast-tracked zoning votes, and shady partnerships. Taylor's writing hit hard. But the part that blew up? My quotes. They pulled one and made it the headline on the online front page. We were never the problem. We were just the ones they stepped on to get where they wanted. It spread fast. People shared it on Facebook, tagged friends. Neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years stopped by the shop just to shake my hand. Customers came out of nowhere. One guy said he drove 30 miles just because he liked what I said. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't the loser mechanic who got left behind. I was the guy who said what everyone else was too polite or too scared to say. Devin became a punchline. Meme accounts started roasting him. One had a side-by-side of his face and a trash can labeled "Flipping Failure." And Hannah? She texted me late that night. I read the article. I'm sorry for everything, for how I left, for what I believed. You didn't deserve that. I stared at the screen for a while, didn't answer right away, didn't know if I even wanted to, because part of me had been waiting years to hear those words. And another part? It didn't need them anymore. The knock came just after 11. Rain was coming down in sheets, tapping against the tin awning over my porch like someone shaking a bag of nails. I'd just flipped off the shop lights and was halfway through a cold beer when I heard it. 3 slow knocks, spaced out, almost unsure. I opened the door, and there she was. Hannah, soaked head to toe, hair stuck to her face, jeans clinging to her legs like they'd been dipped in glue. She looked up at me, eyes tired, lips trembling. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside without saying a word. She walked past me into the living room like she barely recognized the space. I grabbed a towel off the coat hook and handed it to her. She took it with shaking hands. "Thanks." I sat down in the recliner. She didn't sit, just stood near the coffee table, staring at nothing. Towel draped around her shoulders like a cape that wouldn't save her. "I'm sorry," she said finally. I waited. "I know that probably doesn't mean anything right now, but I needed to say it. I needed to say it to you." Her voice cracked, but she kept going. "I was selfish. I got scared when things fell apart. And instead of standing by you, I ran toward what looked easier, safer." Devin made me feel like I could skip the struggle. She shook her head, eyes going glassy. "But he was hollow and fake, and so was the life I thought I wanted. And now I'm here, and I don't even know who I am anymore." She finally sat down on the couch, hands still gripping the towel like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "I thought maybe we could try again, not go back, just start over, something real. You and me, this time, I won't run." The words hung there, heavy, honest, and 5 years ago, I would have jumped at them. But I wasn't the same man she left behind. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "Hannah," I said, "I don't hate you. I did, for a long time, but I don't anymore." She nodded, swallowing hard. "But you don't know who you are? That's not something I can fix for you." "I'm not asking you to fix. I know, but you're still looking for someone to tell you what your life is supposed to be. It was me, then it was him. Now you're back here trying to rebuild with what's familiar." She looked down at her lap. No tears, just quiet. "You need to figure it out, on your own, without leaning on somebody else's story." Silence filled the room, rain hitting the windows like soft drum beats. She stood up, slow and heavy, like her body weighed more than it used to. "Okay," she whispered. She walked to the door, then paused with her hand on the knob. "I did love you, Jay. That was real. I just didn't know how to stay." "I believe you," I said. She opened the door and stepped into the rain. Didn't ask for a ride, didn't look back. I watched from the porch as her taillights disappeared down the road. The rain had started to ease, just a light mist now. I stood there a while, the screen door creaking behind me, my shirt damp from the breeze. and for the first time in a long damn while, my chest didn't feel tight. I didn't feel angry, or bitter, or stuck. I felt free. Next morning, I opened the shop at sunrise. No drama, no messages, no ghosts from the past. Just the hum of the roll-up door and the smell of motor oil and fresh coffee. 6 months had passed. Iron Fox Customs wasn't just alive, it was thriving. I had 2 apprentices now, both local kids straight out of tech school, hungry to learn. We had a wait list for builds, enough client work to keep us booked through the winter. Hell, even the city reached out for a fleet refurb contract, something about local partnerships and community trust. Funny how fast folks remember your name once the dust settles. Devon's empire collapsed like wet cardboard. Fraud, bribery, wire stuff, too many charges to keep up with. One of his ex-partners flipped on him, gave the state everything. Last I heard, his lawyer was negotiating a plea, but no one expected him to walk away clean. And Hannah? She left town. Quiet. No goodbye, no second visit. Some cousin claimed she moved out west, maybe Colorado. I didn't ask, I didn't need to know, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing anyone else's version of success. I'd built this place from the ground up, again, and this time, it wasn't about proving a damn thing to anybody. Not family, not exes. Not people with shiny teeth and startup money. It was about making something that lasted. I slipped on my welding mask, dropped the needle, and cranked the shop stereo. Waylon Jennings filled the air. The metal frame in front of me sparked as the torch met steel. My hands were steady. The rhythm felt right. It wasn't flashy, wasn't loud, but it was mine. Just another good day.